Parallels with Wells Fargo?
Well, yeah, let me explain this. It really struck me this week when I saw the discipline being meted out to the former Wells CEO that both Boeing and Wells were these companies with just incredibly sterling reputations. They were the gold standard in their industries. They have the Buffett stamp of approval. They're national champions for the United States. And I have to wonder, in both cases, did that reputation go to their heads? I mean, was there a certain kind of hubris that let them feel, well, we're so good we can cut corners, that our very, absolutely rock-solid reputations enable us to perhaps get away with some things that other companies who were, didn't operate under that umbrella could do? I mean, it's been very dismaying to me to see two things. One, Boeing, obviously we see the emails. It's not just the flight thing that, controls the nose, but there are a lot of other spots now that are showing up where corners were cut. And, people's lives are at stake here. The same thing at Wells Fargo, which always had such a great reputation for customer service, was, cheating these customers and tricking them into the accounts. Then, in the case of Wells, they retaliated against people who tried to bring this to their attention. Now, I haven't seen that yet in Boeing, but one thing I'm very curious about, we've seen emails of people questioning what was going on there. Well, who got those emails? Where did that go? Why didn't that reach the top of the company? Was there a culture there that discouraged internal criticism? And that is a serious problem in any company.
Well, Calhoun has mentioned microcultures in his calls this week.
Right. And I think that's something that the CEOs sometimes say, well, I didn't know about this specific thing or whatever, which I can understand. They probably didn't. But they should have known about the culture that they had created. In both of these cases, a fixation on profits at the expense of their customers. And I think the minute that happens in any company, that is cancerous.
And if you play it forward from there, if the analogy holds, I mean, obviously, at one point, Boeing thought maybe the CEO didn't have to go, and then, that fell away, new CEO. But also a different interaction with regulators, for a long-lasting on a long-lasting basis, right? I mean, obviously, the FAA is now probably having a different posture toward Boeing.
Well, there's a new CEO at Boeing. I think that's great, and I think they probably waited too long. But the first thing I thought when I heard this latest announcement was, oh, no, here they go again. They're making predictions about when the FAA is going to approve this. Now, I realize Boeing has to make material decisions about how it's running its own company based on some kind of projection. But if it was me, I would be hedging this thing like crazy unless there's something concrete that led me to believe that, June is now going to be the magic time, in which case I would disclose that. This is such material information for Boeing stock, for the airline stocks, for the broad market, for the economy, as we've just seen in this very good report we just had here. This is incredibly important information, and I think they have got to stop making predictions that then don't come true, and they do not control the FAA decision or its timing.
A Boeing engineer might come back and argue, look, our plane and the training required was appropriate for a U.S. pilot, but as we know, these machines go all around the world where pilots, some say, are not as well trained. Is that a legitimate comeback?
Well, I have to be skeptical, given that there were 2 crashes that killed hundreds of people. They must know that they deal with a wide variety of operators around the world, and honestly, I don't think that's a very good defense.
What responsibility does the board at Wells and/or at Boeing have here, and should there be changes there as well? Obviously, Calhoun was on that board for 10 or 11 years before ascending to the CEO role.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of responsibility on the board, and especially once the problems became known. I can understand a board member saying, "Look, we're not managers. The information flow is controlled by the CEO. We didn't know about all of this." I can understand this, but when the crisis became public, they then were on notice. And I think both in the case of Wells and in the case of Boeing, how this crisis was handled afterwards was very, very troubling, and that's where the board has a lot to answer for. The retaliation, certainly at Wells Fargo, against people who were trying to do the right thing. Tracing it to see, why wasn't the CEO answering these emails to him from disgruntled and worried employees, heartfelt emails saying this company's running off the rails. And again, inside Boeing, are they looking into that culture that did not let these issues surface or reach the levels that they should have where there were serious concerns? I think the board really does have to take responsibility for that.
How about, finally, consumer adoption? Customers are still putting their money with Wells. What do you think is going to be critical in getting people to be comfortable flying the plane once it's reinstated?
Well, that's going to be a big challenge. I mean, I still have confidence that Boeing has the expertise. They have looking at the broad view, they have a great track record. It's been very puzzling to me why this has been so difficult for them to solve these particular problems. But honestly, I think when this thing takes off again, it'll probably be the safest plane in the world. And they've just got to be able to get that message across. But it's going to take time.